This conference will now be recorded.
It's my honor and privilege to call to order the February 27th, 2024 regular council meeting for the town of Surfside Beach. I want to invite Pastor Brad Bella of Shepherd of the Seed Lutheran Church to provide the invocation prior to our proceedings.
Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for the gift of freedom that you give us. Thank you for this nation, for this town, for all who've answered your call to serve in leadership, and for all the concerned citizens. God, on this night, we also give you thanks for first responders, those who go into where others are running out of. God, we thank you for this opportunity to be free, and we pray your Holy Spirit guide all the deliberations that take place this evening. For it's in your holy name we pray, and the people of God said together, Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll begin now with any motions relating to the agenda. Hearing none, we will now move on to minutes approval of the February 13th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Kinkin.
I make a motion that we approve the February 13th, 2024 meeting as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That motion has passed unanimously. We'll now move on to public comments related to the agenda only. Do we have any comments? Okay. All right, we will move on to communications. We're going to begin with an employee service award for Officer Robert Dale. Chief? Maybe one more time.
What's the worst?
Wires. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, we're presenting the 5-year service award to Corporal Robert Dale. Has been with the town since January 30th, 2019 until January 30th of 2024, and continuing on for many years, we hope. I just want to say for a minute that Corporal Dale's an integral part of the police department, its functions and operations. In his 5 years here, he's very loyal and dedicated. A lot of folks in the community know him. He's very hardworking. If you're rolling through town at about 6:01 in the morning, 1 minute after he comes on duty, you're liable to see him sitting in the median out on Highway 17, helping to keep an eye on traffic. He does an amazing job. Corporal Dale, I want you to know how much I appreciate you. You do a good job. Your friends are here to support you, your coworkers and colleagues in the community. But thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. You gonna say anything?
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody, the town council. Thanks for recognizing my service to the town. We really appreciate your support, supporting law enforcement and stuff. And Chief, I really appreciate you for allowing me to work here. You've been a mentor to me, truly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to move on to the peer update, and I believe we'll have Administrator Vincent.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. Zane sends his apologies. At work, they had an emergency where he needed to do an inspection at the South Carolina Port Authority. So I wish he'd have been here to give this report, but just to let you know that our scheduled inspection date was Monday at 10 a.m. and all the inspections have been completed. And Mr. Mayor, what I'd like to do is to present to you, the Town Council, a certificate of occupancy for the town pier.
That's a copy, I hope.
Furthermore, I just want to say, 'cause I know there's going to be a lot of questions. So the next process is I have contacted the tenants that are leasing our spaces within the pier. So now it gives them the opportunity to go in and look at their space, to put their plans together, submit their plans to the town, get them approved, and start the upfit. I will also indicate that they inspected Drippy's Ice Cream and they received a certificate of occupancy as well. The next part of the process is there's an administrative and procedural requirements for closeout of these documents dealing with substantial completion, and that should take place in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
So I guess the obvious question, we're not ready to say when we're going to be on there, but we're starting to move in that direction.
We'll move forward. Yes, sir.
Very good.
Awesome.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Vincent on the pier? All right. Thank you again, Mr. Vincent. It's good news. All right. Next item is the forensic audit report. Ramona Farrell.
Someone put that on for me? Do we have that capability?
Is it just push
I'm
it
not
on
sure.
the
I
top?
probably
Should be right on top.
Yeah, it's just covered by this little thing. It's all good.
So I'll have a little more.
It's picking up, yeah.
Okay.
I can hear it.
Would you like to
I
introduce
can, I was
yourself?
gonna say, I can take care of that part while it's going on. So first, Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me. And I'm gonna just be giving you a brief summary of the work that I did. So my name is Ramona Farrell. I am an independent forensic accounting consultant, and look at what's coming up, which is lovely. So I have my own company, Farrell Insights. I do hold some credentials. I'm a certified fraud examiner. I'm also certified as a financial crimes investigator. I do like to be clear, I am not a CPA. I am not an accountant. That being said, I was a partner and managing partner of a CPA firm for over 12 years, and I lived in California. And professionally, I was raised in the accounting profession, and have been doing forensic accounting engagements for well over 20 years. And then on the side down there, I have adjunct faculty. Starting back in 2012, I started teaching for business schools, California State University, and then also Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina, where I lived for a number of years, teaching business ethics courses to college students. And you can imagine the work that I do, you come across a lot of ethical situations where people made bad decisions, crossed the line, and went to worse. So that being said, that's kind of my background. So what I'm going to cover with you is one, the engagement, and specifically the US 17 business project, and then the FEMA reimbursement funds program, and just things that I observed and saw. So my engagement was to look at specifically the accounting related to the US 17 business project, to just make sure that all monies that were due to be refunded to the town were actually refunded and received. So we'll cover that. And then I'll move into the FEMA funds reimbursement, and that was really more looking at the town's participation in the program and the activities that were occurring. And specifically, we're looking at the fiscal years for 2017, 18, and 19, which would be July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2020. So it was a discrete period of time. And it did not include the pier. Okay, so for the business 2013 project, so you did partner up with the South Carolina Department of Transportation, and it was to be resurfacing approximately 2.626 miles of highway. The engagement does start, and in fact, on February 28, 2013, the town issued a $780,000 check, right, to the Department of Transportation. But sometime before August 20th, 2013, the project gets canceled. And then on November 2022, 2013, which I'm going to give kudos to the Department of Finance. So I called and said, you know, I'm going to be looking at this transaction. I really know nothing about it, so what do you have? So luckily, they were able to produce this letter, which will be very enlightening for you. So in part, the letter says, and it's addressed to the town administrator, that they're processing the paperwork. They have a schedule that shows some of the monies that were already refunded, and it's indicating that there's a balance of $162,252 still owed back to the town. However, they're also highlighting that there were costs incurred, and this is something I think may have been missed by some individuals. So they do detail that out, and then you get down to the $162,262. But overall, the town should have been refunded $762,252. So on this schedule, the left side is, I'm replicating that table, so you can follow the items. And then to the right actually is out of the accounting general ledger detail of what happened with the money. Two parts, as we all know, there was a transition with your Department of Finance. So blue highlights are from documents I received from the Finance Department that was in place at the time when I first started the engagement. We actually paused because there was a time of transition, not good for the town, not good for me. I'm not going to work and consume money, and it's just not necessary. So we paused. So then anything that's highlighted in yellow is what came and was provided to me by the now current Department of Finance. So initially, I did a copy. They show me where the money goes out February 28, 2013 to the Department of Transportation. It's $780,000. The next document they provided to me was telling them, hey, there should have been a refund. So where's the $600,000? So they show me, it says partial refund is for $600,000, and that gets put back into the, here's accounts receivable other, right? So it's offsetting this $780,000. So now we have $600,000 of it back. Then they sent me the next deposit, which is a November 2013 deposit. And this one says $160,000. Okay, so the $600,000 and $160,000, you add it together, you get $760,000. So my mind says, wait, we gave them $780,000. Why is this $760,000? So I go back now. We have a new department in place. Went back and said, so here's my dilemma. Help me figure out what happened to the rest of the money. So then the Department of Finance sends me this detail. So it says, okay, for the $780,000 that we sent out, $760,000 gets booked to accounts receivable other. The remaining $20,000 was actually allocated to contractual services account. Okay, so now we know that there's $20,000 sitting out in another account. And you now know from the Department of Transportation that $17,000, I got the dollars here, $748 were preliminary work done by the contractor in preparation of the job. So that money offsets that $20,000. So if you take $20,000 less the $17,748, that leaves a remaining $2,252. So you actually did get a deposit. The check comes in for $162,252, right, which is that balance that the state says they owe you. Offsetting the 20, that left 2,252 after those expenses, and that money actually went back into miscellaneous income, rebates, and reimbursements account. So all money is accounted for, it's just that it got put into different buckets. So the town has received $762,252 back. So that's kind of the rest of that story, okay? So all money is accounted for. Okay, so that project, I think we can set that aside. Okay, so the next was to look at the FEMA reimbursement funds. And this was, for me, interesting. So I spoke with the Department of Finance and said, so can you run me a report for the events or projects that were taking place that were related to FEMA reimbursement funds during the time period I gave you, right, those 3 fiscal years? And so the Department of Finance's response was, we don't track it by events or projects, so we can't do that. Okay, well, what about then providing me with the documentation related to any monies that are going through the FEMA reimbursement accounts? And this was actually really helpful. So they then sent me for each of the 3 fiscal years, and I'm sorry about the details, just it's how it comes out. But these are all the, and I'll get, I guess, into more of an explanation. But during the fiscal period 2017-18, the 10 up here represents, that is the general fund account. But these are the monies that pass through that account for different events. But if you notice, there is no real clarity on what the events are. So then I was put into contact with your Department of Public Works and came down and met with John Adair. Wealth of knowledge, right? I know, mental file cabinet, but it turned out to be very, very helpful. So and this is the sanitation, so notice this 20 out front, that indicates that it's the sanitation fund. And same thing, right, we have the deposits going through, but I'm not really quite sure which events it belongs to. So this will get a little messier, but I put these sheets in front of John, so help me identify which events these are. John had the ability, before he opened up any of his folders, to look at the numbers and go, oh, this was Hurricane Matthew. This was the winter ice storm. This was, and so these are all my little 2s, 3s. You'll see my next sheet. I'm just staying up with them on tracking which line item goes to which event. And here's my notes, right? So you had the 1, 2, 3 on the previous slide. That's what those are referencing. And then down below on my sheet was telling me which event, right, this was tied to. John then pulled folders. He keeps individual folders. So you have that as a resource. FEMA also has a portal that you guys have been using since 2014, which acts as a repository for all the documents and things that he's submitting for reimbursement. But he keeps a folder. So we go through the folder and I'm asking for, copies of the checks, anything he has that can support were these payments, right? What was the generation for them? So he does that and did it quite well. And you'll see here, I have, this is a question mark because there were 2 items that I'll show you where it didn't match up to a check that he had in his possession. So again, it becomes, where's the rest of the money? Okay. So when we get to, this was the sanitation fund, and what became important is this deposit. This references the deposit number. And you can see like this is deposit 21167, 21167. That tells me it's from the same check. So now I was able to go back to finance for anything that I could not track directly with John and say, so I have this deposit reference, I'm looking at a check, and it's not adding up to what's listed either in the general fund or the sanitation fund, right? Because oftentimes you have to add the numbers together to get to the total of the check. So here's the $44,000 check. This is the information I shared with the Department of Finance. And clearly, when I did the math, excuse me, adding the 17,994 and the 24,292, you get 42,000 change, not 44,000. Okay? But again, it's always a good story. So go back. Well, you have good resource. That's one thing I will say too. And I have a last slide that's just observations and recommendations. But in a way, it's a good thing because the Department of Works is tracking the projects independent of the Department of Finance. And when these checks are received, they're going directly to the Department of Finance. So while John Adair is the person with the oversight, he's doing the submissions. He's informing the Department of Finance about here's what you can expect, here's the expected allocation, but the monies are going directly to the Department of Finance. So far as segregation of duties, I think that's a really positive thing. So I think you should hear that. But here's what happens with the money. So remember I told you 10 was the general fund, 20 code is the sanitation fund. There's my 17,994. There's my 24,292. And now we have the 30 account. This is the pier. Okay, so for whatever reason, $2,696 was allocated to the pier. When you add those three numbers together, it gets you back to that $44,985, which was the total of the check. Okay, so John is tracking the general fund, the sanitation fund. And so again, great file cabinet, but he's not gonna know everything. And if he submits something to Department of Finance with the suggested allocation, and they change that allocation, right now, I don't think he's aware of that, because there is no master tracking form. So that'll end up being a recommendation from me. Not that we can't, we get to the answer, right? The money's accounted for. It's just that, you know most of the story, they know the rest of the story, and we all should be on the same page at the end of the day. Okay, so then also in John's folder, there were at least a couple instances where he had either a copy of a summary of payment that was expected and received, or he had an actual copy of the check, but those dollar amounts were not listed in the general fund GL that I reviewed or the sanitation fund. So again, he has a copy of the check, so I would have expected, and I think he did too, that those monies would have shown up in one of those two general ledger accounts. So I go back to your Department of Finance and say same thing. Here's a copy of the summary indicating payments should have been made. Here's an actual copy of this $113,000 check. I need to see the cash receipts report, and the cash receipts report will say, here's the money that's being deposited, and here's the accounts where that money was allocated to. So when I saw that evidence from the Department of Finance, we now know that that $5,541 check actually ended up being allocated to accounts receivable other. And it had a note that said it was a FEMA state and federal portions. So there's two parts to that payment, right? It gets split. Then the $113,000 check was received. There's an actual letter that John had in his file as well that made reference to the category G work, public facilities. There was reference to insurance claim. And that may be why those monies come in, and they were actually allocated to accounts receivable other as well. So the money was accounted for, it is there. But again, John had these checks in his folder, right? When the Department of Finance gives me the runs for the FEMA funds for just the 20 account and the 10 account, which is right, general fund and sanitation, these checks would not have appeared because that's not where they were posted, right? They were posted to accounts receivable other. So again, it's kind of a good checks and balances, but it also highlights some weaknesses, right? And that's kind of where we are. This is my last slide. So the Department of Finance, Department of Public Works, they maintain independent means of tracking events and projects, meaning you guys aren't networked. FEMA funds are accounted for by both departments. Adair, who is your Deputy of Department of Public Works, if you will, does have in-depth knowledge of events and projects, extremely valuable, helpful. I'll also say it creates a vulnerability. If something happens to John, it's tough. I mean, he has all that knowledge and he had all the folders. I will say when I had to circle back to him, it was not, okay, I'll get you in 5. It was, I have to spread everything out, Ramona, and kind of see where I was at with you. So it's not an easy, let me pull up a master tracking form that will tell us money in, where it was allocated. And this is where I think we can maybe do better between the two departments. So it's not easy to access the status or history, right? There is no transaction report that we can run. Primary communication, documentation has been through email. And good relationship, they're back and forth on emails, but also you can miss an email. And then is the email like it, or does something happen afterwards but it doesn't get communicated? And this I'm more speaking about the allocation, right? Of what was expected and what happened. So again, I think there's an opportunity for collaboration between the two departments. Now would probably be a good time, I think, to have them sit down, design a primary event tracking form. Here's the expected monies. Here's where we think it should get allocated. Department of Finance acknowledges payment, but if they change the allocation, I think that needs to be identified. And then the form gets returned back to John, right? You decide who keeps it. But any change in status, it's always on this form. So if it's Hurricane Matthew, we're following it from beginning to end. And at any point in time, you should be able to go back and see the dollars that came in, where they got allocated. It would, I think, take away any questions and also pick up things that are getting allocated outside of your general and sanitation fund that maybe not be obvious immediately. And then lastly was just because the Department of Finance did not have the ability to run any type of transaction history for me or by event, to just investigate if that software would allow them to assign a key number to projects. So then you could actually run a history report by project. And so I'll just do Hurricane Matthew again. If it's Hurricane Matthew, you should be able to put in your date parameters, and then it should, if you have that code, be able to run everything under that code. So everything related to Matthew should show up. And it would show up regardless of which account it gets charged to. Right? So it's just a good way to track history. But it really is the software capable of doing that? Don't know. So short of that, I think you're back to trying to put together a tracking form to create some unity. Okay, so that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you mind taking a few
No,
questions?
not at all, please.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Farrell?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Kirklow?
I'd just like to say, when you found how everything was done, is it a little unusual to do what we did? I mean, wouldn't it make sense to have a tracking form that, even without knowing what a tracking form is, something to keep track of money in and money out?
Yeah, so I guess I'll be, when you start a process, right? So think of the years that this has been, this relationship, if you will, has been going on. And you become comfortable and confident in the way you're managing it. I don't think you stop and say, hey, is there a better way to do this? Oftentimes it's, well, it's working for us, right? We're on the same page. That's just an observation. So I think the benefit is you have the outsider coming in, and that is what this is. These are my observations and recommendations. And you will find, I mean, large companies, right, who did this, Southern California, 5 to 35 million over 5 years, tremendous external growth. And they finally said, hey, wait a minute, let's pause and make sure we're just as strong internally. And found when I got done, they had a lot of things to correct, right? But it's that just you're busy, everybody's busy, stretched. Even communicating with John, you guys have had storms during this process. So you have to go, okay, what I'm doing is important, but you got a town to take care of, and I get that. So it sounds easy, right? Why don't we have this forum? But at the time and over the years, I'm sure it's just because what they've been doing has been working. But is it the best practice?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Kinkin?
who's taking responsibility for the form?
I say collaboration. I think you have a new Department of Finance.
Yes.
You sit them down with John Adair because he's the oversight person. And I think together they come up with a form and agree on the content. And then you have to hold each other accountable to it though.
Okay.
Right? That'll be the key, right? You have to use it and you can't let somebody off. I mean, you have to keep them accountable. And that's together though, right? They both agree on it, then you're more likely that they'll follow.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would say we're already working on it now.
I'm sure you are.
Any other questions? I've got a few. Just starting with Mr. Kinkin's collaboration, but we should ultimately have an owner. And personally, I would think finance would own it and Public Works would assist. Do you think that's?
They can own it because they should get notified. So first would have to start with John notifying them. So you think about that, right? So if John's notifying them and you want the tracking form to then start, that's fine. You just have to acknowledge that the first initiation is actually coming from John Adair or Department of Public Works.
Okay.
Right?
That actually doesn't sound bad because then they're both engaged.
Right, hopefully so, yes.
Okay. And plus, I mean, ultimately the tracking, I think, belongs in finance. I mean, director
Yeah, I'm not
has a
gonna-
wealth of knowledge, but
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just think that
Okay.
you have to decide, right? And then stick to that though.
how were the events that you investigated chosen?
Other than an initial discussion with Rob Clemens, right, who was the interim, and then with Mr. Vincent, we just, usually you'll look a few years back, is what I told him. I mean, you can always keep going back, but for relevancy, if it's more concerning about now what's happened in the most recent time, maybe it's because of COVID also, we chose those 3 years, fiscal years.
It sounds like we gave you the guidance.
Oh, yeah, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, thank you. So, you know, I'm reading this, and I worked for one of the, actually was the largest manufacturer in the world at the time, isn't anymore. But the same determination was made, 20 years ago, that too many things are too reliant on individual knowledge. And yeah, it caused a lot of pain for a lot of us. Ours was engineering work, but yeah, very difficult to develop new systems, but ultimately it was necessary. And yeah, we have no protection if this knowledge is lost. If somebody
You're
had
gonna have a
that
gap,
director
right? You're gonna
there,
have a
we'd
gap.
be in trouble.
Well, you
Kids
have
keep
to,
saying that stuff,
but you have the portal, right? So
Okay.
you're not totally lost. But, so I didn't dive into the portal, but I guess the question would be, is John Adair the only person who knows how to use the portal and has access? Or do you have a secondary backup person?
So that would be a good part of the process.
Yeah.
Now, the process, as I'm seeing it ultimately, once you found everything, it doesn't sound like it was that complicated. It seems like it could be done through spreadsheets.
Well, spreadsheets, but it's more like just not stopping with what you see. Again, I didn't stop with what I saw versus, okay, you gotta finish the story because I'm seeing some missing money. Not that it's not there, but it's not obvious in the sheets you've provided.
Okay.
So the forensic consulting is not an audit, just so we're all clear, right? This was not an audit. So it's much more investigative.
Okay.
And it's not, again, you don't stop at just what you see, but it's what don't you see, right? And that's kind of what I was doing.
Okay, so yeah, and then that's the rest of the tracking
That's
system,
right.
is tying it to the project and so forth.
Seeing the check, give me the cash receipts, give me a copy of anything that I could think of to support.
And it just sounds like, finance maybe made some decisions that we're not really sure why some of this stuff was split off for peer
Right.
accounts and so forth. I did a quick math, it was 6% of that 45,000.
Right, and I would see a
don't know.
6% reference on a document,
Okay.
but it's still, for me, it's, well, here's John's, what he thought was happening. It's the disconnect, right? Not saying what the Department of Finance did wasn't accurate or correct, but the communication, wasn't the follow through, so that John would also be aware that there was a reallocation.
So that's another part of the process.
Well,
We
if you
should
have
define.
the tracking form, that should take care of that, right? Because John needs to see it, approve it, but if the Department of Finance is changing an allocation, that needs to be on that form and go back to John, right? And I just feel like he needs to keep a copy of that current form also, because he's the initiator.
Well, he's going to be an integral part of the process.
Yeah, no, I know,
certainly.
but I'm just saying, right,
Okay.
the communication has to stay consistent.
Okay, all right. And he probably needs a backup, and you're probably already looking at all of this
Yeah,
stuff. but
and he may have a backup, right?
Okay.
But if he doesn't, it'll be good.
I think that's the end of what I got, so, okay. Before Ms. Farrell leaves, okay, Mr. Walls?
I just, one final thing, when we're talking about this form, are we talking about keeping this electronically or manually or both? Both, I would hope.
So,
Okay.
for example, John has his folders.
Yeah.
My expectation would be is that John's gonna either be stapling to the cover of the folder, or it's the first thing you see when you open up his folders. Like, he has all of his support in there. He had copies of the checks, right, the sum payments, he had all that detail. But there wasn't even in his documentation a master schedule that he could go to, like we're searching through. So think about it, if you open it up, it's great to have the support, but if I have a master schedule in front, I can easily see the checks that have been received, how much they are, and where the allocations went, right?
Yeah.
I think it'll save time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that it? Thank you very much. It was very clear. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, thank you.
All right, that moves us on to the annual audit report from Green and Finney Colley.
Just a minute to transition.
Okay,
Sorry, yes.
that's fine.
Reduce your cords by 1, 2.
Well, good evening. My name is Emily Sobczak. I'm an audit partner with Green Finney Colley, and I'm here to present the results of the financial statement audit for the year ended June 30th, 2023. So what Ramona just gave you was a lot of, like she said, investigating into the details. We're taking a big step back and looking at an overview of the town's financial results for fiscal 23. So before we get into the numbers, I think it's important to remind you that when it comes to the financial statement report and the audit, most of the work that goes into getting to the point where we have that final report is on the town side. And everything that they're doing throughout the year and making sure that the financial information that they're providing to you on a monthly basis, that information that you can rely on it, that it's complete and accurate, that is supported by your policies and procedures. And so it's very important that you are, as a town, that you're performing some risk assessment on a regular basis. As circumstances change, your policies and procedures will likely need to change as well, so that we can make sure that there are good internal controls in place to mitigate the risk of misstatement in that financial information. So our responsibility then, as your auditor, is to audit the financial information provided and issue an opinion based on our audit. We have issued an unmodified opinion again this year. That opinion provides reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. So reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it's not absolute. We're not looking at every single transaction that occurred during the year. Rather, we're using some professional judgment in determining our audit procedures. So we'll look now at your financial results for the general fund. The general fund had an increase in fund balance of $464,000, bringing total fund balance to $5.9 million as of June 30th. Included in that $5.9 million is non-spendable fund balance of $30,000. So that represents funds that have literally already been spent, your prepaid expenses and your inventory. You also have restricted fund balance of $18,000 for your victims advocate fund, as well as the K9 fund. Those are externally restricted. Then we have your committed fund balance of $1.2 million that was committed by council for disaster recovery. And then the last designation is your assigned fund balance of $1.1 million, and that represents your reserves for the capital replacements, land, meters, and parking. So if we take out those amounts, we're left with unassigned fund balance of $3.6 million. That is what's truly available for future operations. And that represents 43% of your actual 2023 general fund expenditures. When we compare that to our national generic benchmark that's provided by the Government Finance Officers Association, they recommend at least 2 months of operating expenditures in that unassigned fund balance. But town policy reflects the fact that there are a number of reasons unique to the town why we want that unassigned fund balance to be a little bit higher than 2 months. And so town policy says we should have a minimum of 4 months, which is about 33%. So as you can see, you are in compliance with that policy. Now, let's look at some of those factors of why we want to maintain that healthy financial position. One very important factor is that we are measuring your fund balance as of June 30th, but property tax revenues generally aren't going to start coming in until January. So we've got about 6 months of cash flows to get through, and we rely on that unassigned fund balance to help us do that. If that fund balance is not available, then we have to rely on short-term financing to fund those operations, which of course comes at a cost. We also want to have some flexibility in determining how capital costs are paid for, and so that you're not always having to issue debt to finance capital improvements. And then having that healthy financial condition and a strong fund balance policy also allows you to achieve the best interest rates possible when you do have to issue debt. So we'll look now at the activity for the general fund. You have total revenues of $7.7 million. That was a 3% increase from the prior year and about 9% better than what you had budgeted. Your property tax revenues as well as your parking revenues both came in higher than budget. On the expenditure side, total expenditures were $8.5 million. That was a 5% decrease from the prior year. However, it's important to note that the decrease was driven by a decrease in capital outlay, as most of the town hall expenditures were in fiscal '22. If we look only at your operating expenditures, those actually did increase some compared to the prior year, largely due to increases in personnel costs. And your operating expenditures came in 2% below what you had budgeted. Now we'll look at all of your governmental funds combined. So adding to your general fund, the accommodations tax funds, your hospitality fund, stormwater, capital projects, and the police drug funds, we're looking at total revenues of $13.4 million compared to expenditures of $10.4 million. We also have net other financing uses of $426,000. That primarily represents your transfers over to the PIER fund. We'll look now at your enterprise funds. Now remember, when we look at governmental funds, we're focused on current assets and current liabilities. But because your enterprise funds are intended to operate more like businesses, we report those on a different basis of accounting. And so we're including long-term assets and long-term obligations on your enterprise funds. Looking at the sanitation fund, you had an increase in net position of $274,000, bringing total net position of $3 million. But again, because some of that does include your capital assets, it's important to note that $938,000 represents your investment in those assets. So not liquid assets, not funds that are available for future spending. Operations for the sanitation fund were consistent with the prior year. Your PIER fund had an increase in net position of $1.5 million, bringing total net position to $18.9 million. But again, a significant portion of that, $16.5 million, represents your investment in the PIER. Your PIER fund did nice $1 million in grant revenues. Those were state grants received during the current year for the PIER restoration project, as well as $610,000 of transfers from your tourism-related funds. We'll look now at some of your long-term assets and obligations. Total capital assets for the town were $40.5 million as of June 30th. That represented an increase of $8.9 million from the prior year. And of course, the most significant capital activity you have during the year is the PIER project. You also reported $3.8 million in outstanding GO bonds, and that represented a reduction from the prior year as you did begin making principal payments on those bonds this year. And then finally, we'll talk about your net pension liability. The net pension liability, it's important to understand, is not a direct liability of the town. However, it represents the town's proportionate share of the total unfunded actuarial liability of the state retirement system. So that liability of $7.6 million is not a balance that you're ever expected to write a check to pay off. Rather, what you are expected to pay is the employer contributions at the rates mandated by the state. And that's important because those rates have been steadily increasing for over 10 years now. For fiscal '23, we had rates of 17.5% and 20.2%. Those rates both reflected a 1% increase from 2022, and they have increased again for fiscal '24. So we're now at rates of 18.5% and 21.2%. That, of course, does have a significant impact on your operating budget as well as your cash flows. The good news is that there are no current plans in place to continue those increases. So the bad news is they're going to stay really high probably for the foreseeable future, but at least we don't anticipate them going any higher than they are now. The town did not require a single audit for fiscal '23 as your federal expenditures were less than the threshold of $750,000. As most of the, or nearly all of the FEMA funding for the PIER was expended as of the year ended June 30th, 2022. However, we do perform our audit in accordance with government auditing standards. And so you do still have a compliance report in the back of your financials. And that report describes our responsibilities under those government auditing standards. And one of the responsibilities is to identify in writing any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that we identified during our audit process. So if we are having to make significant audit adjustments, then we would be required to report that. I'm pleased to say, no findings to report this year, which your finance department should be extremely proud of, given that there was a transition, and I know that really complicated the closeout process, but they did a great job, and we're a pleasure to work with. So lastly, we do issue a management letter each year. That's required communications from us to council and to management. So I do encourage you to review that when you receive it, and always feel free to reach out with any questions, and happy to answer any questions you might have now.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I didn't catch your last name.
Sobchak.
Sobchak. S-O, how do you?
S-O-B-C-Z-A-K.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds just like it sounds, right?
Just like it sounds. I'm actually Polish as well, so that might not be Polish, but it's.
It is Polish.
I should assume. Okay, do we have any questions for Ms. Sobchak? It's a lot to digest.
I understand.
I honestly don't have any questions right now at this time either. So
Well, like I
that's kind of a
said,
new thing.
please feel free, Melanie can provide you with my contact information. If you have any questions after the fact or, throughout the year as things come up, please never hesitate to reach out if there's anything we need to be aware of or discuss.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Walls.
I have one question. When you said the council and mayor were going to receive something directly from you all, it's just a letter?
Along with the financial report,
That's
there will
what
be a management letter.
I was hoping to have seen a copy, but we didn't get that with the packet, so I wasn't able to review
Things came right down to the wire.
it. Thank you, I appreciate it. I'll look forward to getting that.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Kinkin.
when we were in Columbia, we were taking a class on budgeting. And there were quite a few towns in the state of South Carolina that have to borrow money to get through September to December. And to look at it, if you're borrowing more each year, you're getting further in the hole. And if you're not borrowing at all, you're doing really well. So I think the town is in real good financial situations, thanks to the accounting department. But this is, to my knowledge, since I've lived here for 10 years, we've never borrowed money just to make it through the loop. So.
That's correct. You are in a very healthy condition, and so it's important that going forward, you continue to make good strategic decisions to keep that healthy position.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now to the department reports, and we'll start with the administrator, Administrator Vincent.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. I want to start with the Planning, Building, and Zoning Department. So currently advertised for open positions is just a planning director position. We have accepted a conditional offer for a building inspector position, which is part-time. That gentleman will start on Thursday. And this individual has certifications as a building official, residential building inspector, stormwater and plan reviewer, and floodplain management. In addition, a conditional offer was received and accepted today with our code enforcement officer, and this individual will start on March the 18th. Going into our budget presentations or preparations, the directors have been very busy preparing the upcoming budget for the workshop. We have scheduled all departments to meet with the administration and finance departments for the first round of budget discussions on Monday and Tuesday, March 4th and 5th. The next steps will be a thorough review by the administration and finance. We will schedule a second and final meeting with staff regarding revisions to the proposed budget before it's recommended to Town Council. On April the 8th, the Town Administrator will present the budget message to Town Council at his budget retreat. And lastly, I know there's, regarding the Athletic Booster Club, this was left, prior to, Rob Clemens leaving, but there's an outstanding agreement with the Athletic Booster Club. There is a new president, Rusty McGill. The mayor and I met with, Mr. McGill, Monday morning. He plans to come to the board on March the 12th to present the agreement to the council. But basically, the agreement outlines the use of Martin Field and Huckabee Recreational Complex. And before that, Mr. Clemens was working on a draft with the previous president, but that never got signed and approved by the town council. And just to say, the Athletic Booster Club, AKA Surfside Beach Youth Sports Association, is a nonprofit organization organized by volunteers. The agreement will clarify the purpose, the scope of services, scope of support by the town, accounting of funds, etc. So currently, the Public Works Department provides maintenance to these fields. And again, that agreement will come to the board on March the 12th. And lastly, I want to announce that we have a new fire chief. So it's my pleasure to announce David Nelson will be the next fire chief for the town of Surfside Beach. Mr. Nelson has 35 years of experience in the fire services field, having worked in Pennsylvania and Horry County previously. He has associates and a bachelor's degree in fire science and is currently working on his master's degree. In addition, he is a U.S. Army veteran, and March the 11th will be his first day on the job. And Tabitha is working on a meet and greet that will be set for that same day at the fire station.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. Do we have any questions for Mr. Vincent?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Coleman?
on the planning and zoning director, we still have that requirement for them to be certified business?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we do.
Since we're not getting anybody, is it possible we can remove that requirement?
I would need that to come from town council. Because any change in the job description would have to come, being a director would have to come from town council.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Mr. Vincent. We'll move on to the fire report from Deputy Chief Carter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Vincent, staff, and our citizens. Surfside Beach Fire Department strives to provide the best service to its citizens, business, and visitors. In the month of January, we started working on the replacement plan for reserve pumper, which would meet the assist with meeting ISO, and also with assisting us with coverage if one of our apparatus goes down. Currently, the reserve pumpers are at a higher cost today due to the fact that they're becoming more valuable to other departments due to it taking 3 to 4 years or longer to get new apparatus once they're ordered. So now your used equipment is becoming more valuable. Also working with Melanie, reviewing the budget for the 2025 budget and making updates as needed. It's also included staffing for safe operations for incidents and coverage around our town. We continue to look at that budget, the personnel that was approved in this past year's budget, and looking at that. Once the new chief comes in, we'll work together to achieve that. We continue to work with South Carolina Fire Academy to sponsor training classes with all levels, from firefighters, officers, driver operators, and so forth. Currently this week, we have a Fire 2 class being taught at our fire department to firefighters all over the region and the state. In the last 3 years, we have sponsored 36 classes in-house at Surfside Beach Fire Department for firefighters from our region and all over the state. We're also working on the communication plan for replacing our radio program. Right now, we're looking at roughly about 24 portables that we're needing to replace. I'm not going to request we talk a little further about this tonight. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
This is roughly a quote. This is a quote for $205,532.12. As of December 31st, our radios went out of service, are unserviceable through Motorola.
Anyone who operates off the radio systems are at the mercy of the manufacturer. They actually recommend that Motorola recommends we replace radios every 7 to 8 years. I worked with a couple of grant writers and also with Erie County. At this point in time, they're saying that in order to place radios to a grant, they look at those being roughly 12 to 15 years old plus. Our radios were purchased in 2016. So with that being said, we're looking more of having to replace them through a budgeted item. I've included this in over a 4-year plan in the budget that I will cover with Melanie. But also, we cover a few of those radios in ATAC's budget this past week. Any questions so far? Okay.
Why don't you go ahead? We'll save the
Okay.
questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Also working with information needed for a SAFER grant. Been working on getting all the information over the last 3 years and putting all that together now. SAFER grant possibly may open up in May. Unsure at this time, the exact time, but they're saying possibly in May. Section 2 is over our incidents. For the month of January, we had 82 incidents. 39 of those were in the town, 43 of those were in the county, outside our area. Next page, you're looking at inspections. There was 53 inspections, 255 violations discovered, 81 of those have been corrected. Each one of the next pages, as before, this is a breakdown of each shift, their activities, hours, and events that an activity they do as far as training, multi-company training, and so forth.
Are there any questions for Deputy Chief Carter?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Walls?
I just had one. So I'm to understand. Ultimately, you need 24 radios. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And all these line items add up to a total expenditure of $205,000 and $205,550.
Yes, sir. That's just for the fire department itself. In 2013, the police department also, their radios are going out. Their radios also went out. That's another 36 radios, which would be a higher amount than that. Like presenting the ATAX meeting, this is going to be roughly close to $500,000 if you do it all at one time rather than budgeting over a period of time. Currently, we're very blessed and very fortunate. Erie County assists us with a lot of things we do. So they're our saving grace. And they assist us with running calls. They assist us with our radio programming. They assist us with dispatching. There's numerous things they actually assist us with that saves us. And roughly this past year, when they reprogrammed our radios to bring them up to date, they saved us a pretty good chunk of change. And we're very appreciative.
So a second question, Mr. Mayor, if I might. Just, if we do this in steps, I mean, I know ATAX, would you ask for 5?
5, yes, sir.
Does that help?
It helps.
I mean, doing it, yeah, that's kind of a dumb question, but I mean, what would be the minimum that you need to bring this department up? I mean, like immediately? 5?
This amount is actually for each seat and each firefighter have a radio if we actually would respond to an incident.
Okay.
So this covers anything from the chief, deputy chief, captain, shift supervisors on each seat on the apparatus, and so forth.
I'll continue on the radios for a minute. You said they're no longer serviceable. They work.
Yes,
But
they
if
work.
something happens,
That's correct. If something happens to these radios, right now, if one breaks, we put it on the shelf and we use it as a parts piece to repair the next one, and we do it again, do it again. The one thing that we gotta look at though is, there was no replacement plan for radios. If Erie County at any point in time, could they dispatch us and we function off theirs, each and every incident scene, we function through the Erie County radio system. We do not have our own. And we're at the mercy of that, because if they ever change radios or systems, or something changes of that nature, it could be where we have to immediately update our radios. And this is not something you can budget next year. It's something that have to be done then to make sure we maintain our safety and operations on the incident scene.
Now, that's not like, I mean.
It's not likely to happen,
Yeah.
but you need to know upfront if it does, and somebody county council gets an idea to do something, then it could possibly happen.
Council members can come up with some unusual ideas sometimes. But you're in constant communication with them, that you would not be surprised.
Correct.
You know.
Dale Miller, Ray Hardwick, and all them other, and Randy Webster, deputy administrator.
Okay, are there any potential compatibility issues with the old radios and the new ones that would be coming in?
No, sir. The only thing is it can't be serviced, and it is so my understanding with this, it's a whole different setup on the radio. We're gonna stay in the same series, but it's gonna be totally different function, program, and so forth.
I have another question, but does anybody else have anything about radios before we move off of that? Okay, I do want to clarify a little bit. The reserve pumper, it's taken longer. We've heard that before when this first came up. I know things happened like during COVID times. Is this still related to that, or why is equipment so much harder to get? So it takes so much longer now? Is that the way it's going to be forever?
I mean, right now it's hard to get parts and so forth. Just like when our pumper was down for 6 months. I mean, getting parts was the biggest issue. And I know now with City of Myrtle Beach and other area departments actually ordering apparatus, you're talking at least 4 years out. I believe some of y'all should have seen that in the news stuff. It could take up to 4 years. So right now, if we get a piece that goes down, if you want a brand new piece, it can take 4 years to get it.
And I mean, that's just the way it is
That's
now.
the way it is.
It's for
That's the way it is
foreseeable
right
future.
now. I mean, nobody said anything different. Same thing with turnout gear. If you go to buy a set of turnout gear, the last set of gear we ordered over a year ago, and we're just getting it.
Any other questions for Deputy Chief Carter?
I do.
Mr. Walls,
Mayor, please.
go ahead.
We got some work done on one of the trucks.
Correct?
It's good.
Yes, sir.
It's operating now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how did it affect us budgetarily as far as what you anticipated or budgeted for? Because I'm setting up for something else here.
Okay. With that being said, $4,000 on a loaner. We're looking for the month because no other department actually loans out their pumpers, and that was via email from each chief. Also looking at about 18,000 just in repair parts. So what we're doing is I talked with Safe Industries. They forward all the parts that was taken out to Hale Pumps, H-E-L-E, and in North Carolina, and it is actually being reviewed to see if it can be covered by warranty. So at this point in time, we have not cut a check or anything for that. We are waiting to see if this can be done under warranty. Then whatever we might have to pay, we'll cut a check at that point in time.
Thank you.
Right.
The reason I brought that up, Mr. Mayor, is that I'm hoping to in future, very near future date, I want to relook your signs. I want us to bring back that the dedication, the signs that you wanted to get done. I know we tabled that because we, number one, wanted to get the finished, and number two, wanted to see what it was going to cost us to get the truck back on the road. So I think it's the next thing to move forward on doing something, relooking at that request that you made about the dedication of the building. So that's why I was asking about that.
Anything else for Deputy Chief Carter? Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Thank you, Larry. We are now moving on to the police report from Chief Hoffman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and citizens. This is the monthly report and activity for the police department for January 2024. Statistics show a 32.76% increase in calls for service from January of last year. Arrest and citation data between January of last year and January of this year show an 18.56% increase. Canine summary. Corporal Pinto and Canine Sif had a busy month in January. They completed 18 hours of training. They had 7 deployments in the month of January that resulted in 2 arrests. The team seized crack cocaine, ecstasy, marijuana, and drug paraphernalia. Additionally, the team investigated and executed a drug-related search warrant that resulted in a large drug seizure, seizure of 1 handgun, and over $18,000 in cash. In summary, in the month of January, the police department answered 1,475 calls for service, resulting in 51 custodial arrests, 455 uniform traffic citations, 12 ordinance summons that could include parking, and there were 25 criminal arrest warrants. 11 of those warrants were related to drug possession or distribution. We transported 47 prisoners to J. Regan Long Detention Center. Also, the officers issued 442 warnings in lieu of uniform traffic citations, so it's about 50-50 on the warnings versus citations. Victim advocacy staff attempted to contact 40 complainants to conduct our customer service surveys in line with the town's vision to improve customer service. Contact was made with 25 people. 24 of those individuals responded that your officers were prompt. 18 complainants responded that their issue was resolved. 6 people stated that their original complaint was not resolved. That was an informational report, 2 larcenies, a B&E auto, civil matter, and 1 person crime of a criminal sexual conduct. That case is still under investigation. 1 person answered no to all questions as the incident they reported did not occur in the town of Surfside Beach. Some notable events: the police department participated in the Law Enforcement Network's Christmas 2023, New Year's Eve 2024 Sober Slammer campaign with increased patrol staffing. The police department executed the drug-related search warrant on 6th Avenue South, resulting in the closure of a drug investigation by Corporal Pinto and K-9 SIF. The execution of the search warrant resulted in numerous felony charges and the seizure of drugs, weapons, and a large amount of cash. There was a press release that was done on social media for that. Police department participated in the Champion Autism Network's Autism Friendly event with the partners over at the fire department. I did update the calls for service summary as requested at the last council meeting to include not just January of this year, but January of last year for additional reference information. That's the report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Chief Hoffman? Mr. State.
I'd like to know what happens to this drug money, Kenny. I mean, seriously, is any of it come back to the town once these people are convicted, or
Yes, sir.
do we lose that all to the county, or what happens? I mean,
No,
that's
sir.
$10,000 in cash, pretty good money.
So as reported in the audit information, there are drug funds that the town maintains. That money we will file a civil asset forfeiture through the solicitor's office. They will hire an attorney that will represent the town, and we will attempt to seize all of that cash to come back to the town. It'll take some time, though. It takes time for that to move through the civil courts. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Walls.
Kenny, help me out here. Help me understand as a resident expert on service, 18.56% increase from 1 year to the next.
Mm-hmm.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, there's a lot more people here.
Is that?
Yes, and one notable area you'll see in the activity for the calls for service, traffic stops went up from 400 and some change to 700 and some change. There are more people traveling through your town every day. I don't have to tell anybody in the room that the number of people moving into this area is skyrocketing. So there's more traffic, there's more things going on, and those things result in officers getting involved and at times more charges and arrests being made.
Second question, Mr. Mayor, if I could. Just how are we stacking up to surrounding areas as far as maybe Myrtle Beach and their increase? Do you monitor that?
I don't really have their exact
No.
statistics. I believe that we're still maintaining a very safe community for our residents, and I would put our crime statistics up against any of our area.
Oh, that wasn't the question. I'm just wondering if
I don't really know. I don't
it
have the
seems to
exact
be
numbers.
targeting our little, or whether it's just strand-wide type of situation.
If you look at the numbers, if you get an opportunity and you look at the actual calls for service breakdown from last year to this year, and I get this report each month, as you know, these numbers continue to increase. There is an increase across the board of certain types of offenses, but we are still fortunately extremely low in any violent crime. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Schoen.
question here, just so I can understand a little bit better. Time-wise, as much time as the police officers spend on Business 17, are they also spending the same amount of time going through the community?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just needed that because I've been asked that multiple times.
Sure.
You know, because everybody sees the lights, you know, you see lights, but not everybody is going to be outside seeing the patrolmen going around.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an emphasis on the community policing aspect in this agency and making sure that they stay in the neighborhoods. The supervisors are responsible for making sure that there is a presence out there that's remaining in the neighborhood patrolling as well.
Thank you.
I assume it's also seasonal. I mean, more in the R3 district, maybe in summertime.
Absolutely. Well, and, you know, we will assign officers during the busier part of the season to stay in that R3 area for patrol purposes. And we expect certainly pier opening, and we'll have a busy summer this year. So we'll be needing to get some additional resources down into that area to make sure that we maintain order down there.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We're now going to move into Public Works. Director Adair. Got a tough act to follow now after all the kudos are over.
Yeah, I'm the promoter, knew I was here. Good evening, council, mayor, and citizens. The public works report for January, I'll intertwine a little current stuff in here as well, since we're deep into February. In our sanitation division, pretty normal. Sanitation delivered 13 mobile carts to people due to overflow, rental property replacement, or new ownership. We are ordered and we're about to receive additional 275 blue 65-gallon recycling carts on a DHEC grant for about $20,000. So we won't have to pay for those. In January, we collected about 400 tons of solid waste, 57 tons of mixed debris, 90 tons of yard debris, and 36 tons of recyclables. So we remain strong. For January, that's very high, just to put it in context. We're usually down in the mid threes on the solid waste. We're close to 400 tons, which is high. That's like spring number. In our streets and drainage division, our crews continue to inspect and maintain drainage ways throughout town for capacity and function. Rehabilitation has begun at the Pier Beach access walkover. Some of you might have seen that in the Pier parking lot where the shower area is. We're redoing that deck and shower area to improve, and the pipe underneath it that drains out into the E3 district out to the ocean. We've actually extended that pipe and made some stormwater improvements while we're working on it. The work will be ongoing through March on that deck. We are making preparations for the new Fuller Park restroom installation that's being made. The old restroom at Fuller Playground has been demolished. The pad and the rough end is ongoing for the April delivery of the new restroom. That's right next to the tennis court fence. So some of you might see that work going on. I attended a preliminary walkthrough today for the 3rd to 9th Avenue North underground wiring project that's upcoming in conjunction with Sandy Cooper and our franchise fund. I met with the engineers and all the representatives from all the different various utilities and communications companies to nail down all of the conduit needs that they have. The final edits to the construction plans will be made, and that project will be bid out later this year. And the way that works, for those of you who don't know, is that this upcoming off-season in the wintertime, that whoever gets the award of that contract will begin installing conduits, primarily in the right-of-way on 3rd to 9th North. Since it's a very wide right-of-way over there, they won't be digging up the road so much, so the road will be open for traffic. And then the conduits will be installed in the vaults this winter, and then they pause for the 2025 season, and then the following winter, they actually pull all the wires and they take the poles down. So it's a 2-year project of activity, which you'll see. And then anybody who has to have a connection made from the new underground service to their house, that'll be done in last connections. In our grounds division, 2 public restrooms here, and I believe Passive Park have gotten some fresh interior painting. We replaced the faucet at 13 South restroom. A new piece of play equipment has been ordered and now installed at Old Children's Park. Some of you might have seen that on 10th Avenue South. The town will be reimbursed much of that cost through a Parks and Recreation grant, about $5,500 out of the $8,800 cost. I'll get back on a reimbursement grant on that. New netting was installed at the batting cages at the Huckabee Complex. I'm participating in an FDA-sponsored grant with DHEC through their entomology department. They've awarded the town approximately $30,000 to replace and upgrade our mosquito spraying equipment that we have. So I'm going to be able to upgrade our ULV sprayer, a lot of hand sprayers, and probably a year's worth of chemicals at no cost to the town. So that's a big win. As far as the pier goes, I held a pre-bid conference on January 25th for prospective bidders for the pier camera conduit portion of the installation, and those bids were opened on February 2nd. The successful bidder was Jet Electrical Service out of Florence for $32,000, and he should be starting work this week, I believe, later on this week, hopefully, if not, beginning of next week. Fleet Maintenance Division, in January, our mechanics completed 74 repairs on town vehicles and equipment, as well as 23 vehicles received preventative maintenance. That's all I have for tonight. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to elaborate.
Any questions for Director Adair?
I just have one statement.
Mr. Wells?
Please. I just want to appreciate, it seems like every time you present something to us, you've got 2 or 3 things that you've already reached out and gotten some free money for us. And I appreciate the effort that you put forth in all of that. It even came out in that forensic, all those reports that you sent in to get all that money back for the cleanup that you did after those storms and so forth. So I just appreciate the effort that you put into that.
Yeah. If there's a reimbursement to be had, you know, you have to, over the years of doing this, you have to know the right way to do it. Following, if you stay in the box of the provider, you can really maximize the return.
I appreciate your effort.
All grants have strengths, but you try to work around it.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Stamey?
I want to know something. Are you training anybody else to do your job?
Not just yet.
Did you not understand what we did that lady say? If you leave, we're going to be in trouble. You said you need to be looking at somebody over getting.
As the years go by, that'll be a concern, but I'm not really concerned about it right this minute.
You might get sick.
I'll make sure,
Don't you, Jim?
I'll try to train up my replacement when the time comes.
You have a good relationship with your doctor.
Yeah, it seems more and more every year.
Thanks, John.
All right, thank you.
I do have one question
Yes,
myself. The pier camera conduit, you said Jet Electrical Service out of Florence at $32K.
Right.
How does that compare to what we budgeted?
It's favorable. You know, we budgeted about 60,000 for both.
Right.
And so the camera system was, I think, 23 or something like that. So we're in the mid 50s, you know, 56, something like that.
I just remember 36.
Well,
I'm
within
not
our-
sure for the conduit.
The one approximate quote that we had gotten from the other contractor that was working on the pier already, Melton Electric, was 36.
Okay.
And that's how they came in on their bid as well. 32 for Jet, so.
Okay.
They were qualified and they were responsive and responsible, so there's no reason not to award it to them.
Very good. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Shawn?
one question I have, do you have like an ongoing list, like for the beach entrances that need to be upgraded a little bit, whether it's one board or a whole? I mean, do you have a project list?
Well, we are currently, as I mentioned, we're doing the pier walkover right now. That was on our short list for this winter. And then we have a small one, a 6-foot one, that is on my crew's list to do this winter after that. And we try to do a couple per winter.
Okay.
You know, and there's always repairs on top of that come up, that people break things, and as we get notified of them or we see them, we go out and we tackle them right away. Safety is, you know, paramount. You know, if there's a broken step somewhere or a broken handrail, as soon as we become aware of it, we stop what we're doing and get it squared up, so there's no safety issues. We don't want any liability.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Kinkin?
John, last year you gave us your plan for rolling stock, the replacement. Remember, you replace these trucks this year,
Yes.
that truck next year, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
If you would, when you come back next month, bring that for everybody.
Okay, I know we gave it to y'all during the budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Is that when we
part of
get
the
it?
budget,
Okay.
yeah.
I just know it had a lot of information in there, and
Yes.
it's good information.
Yeah, we do a 5-year plan pretty
Yeah.
much, and, you know, once we get into the second year of the plan, we move the whole thing forward and do the back end 2 years, so we're constantly evaluating every year, the equipment needs. condition, hours, propensity for repairs. Just because this truck needed to be replaced in 11 years, this one might in 10, and there's no hard and fast rule. But I will second what Larry Carter said about the costs. The cost of everything is going way high, as we all know, way higher. But the good news is that we're getting more on the back end too. The last front-loading garbage truck that we sold about 6 years ago, that picks up the commercial containers, we got $55,000 for it. We just sold the one that we just replaced this year. We got $157,000 for the used vehicle, for an 11-year-old almost vehicle, which I almost fell out of my chair. But some guy from Indiana bought it, and he sent a lowboy today to go pick it up to be towed back to Indiana. So used prices are good as well. So it's not all bad news. So that's why. Anybody have anything else?
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
We're now going to move on to public information and events. Coordinator Molly.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to give you the communication and events report. So what I am most proud of right now is our surfsidebeach.org website. I want to give you some this year to last year stats and let you guys hear how we are doing. So last year for total users, we had 75,864 users. This year we're at 194,084 users. New users were 74,295 for last year. This year we're at 190,330. For total page views, we had 260,818 last year. This year, 610,513. And then total sessions were 106,833. And this year is 268,709. So what does all that mean? That means we are gaining traffic to our website, which is exactly what we want to do. And the ultimate goal of gaining traffic to our current website is so we can kick off a visitors page that will directly link them back to surfsidebeach.com. Visit surfsidebeach.com rather. So now that this work has been done, we can successfully launch a true tourist visitors page from our own website. So yay for us. Yay for us. Okay. The archive page, Mr. Stamey, the archive page, which is the past year, 8 years of information that we were unable to put on our current website, that process will begin in March. All the data has been retrieved, and it's just a matter of manual movement at this point. So we are going to take steps to do as much as we can, Sherry and I together, to get that information on there as fast as possible. Of course, you're welcome, sir. Okay, so a note, the page that lists all of our businesses in town. So on surfsidebeach.org, there was a business page and it was empty. So that was empty on purpose. The reason for that being empty is I have spoken with the business license manager, and she was advised by the MASC attorney that advised her not to post a business list on our surfsidebeach.org website because of Act 176 that was passed in 2020, that Surfside Beach, us, adopted this in 2021. She had asked me to tell you all to contact her directly, even citizens, if you have any more questions based on that. But that's the reason that we don't have businesses on that page. So, and I'm sure she can provide you, or you can look at Act 176 and go from there for some questions to meet with her if you want to do that. Okay. Like I said, visit Surfside Beach. I'm so excited to launch that from our page, but ongoing page upgrades do continue. And what are those upgrades? Those are photos, links. We're going to link that surfsidebeach.org with the Visit Surfside Beach visitor page
So lots of moving parts there, but again, I'm actually going to spend time on that now that we've been so successful with our website. Tourism advertisements, like newspaper, social media, radio, all of those things drive traffic to our town. And that's a positive thing because we are putting heads in beds. We're filling the restaurants. We are selling all the lemonade on the beach, whatever we need to do to drive the business to the town so it helps our town prosper. It's a really good thing. So how do I quantify that? So current, when people tell us they've heard of our events, and by the way, I ask any and everyone that I interact with, how did you hear about this event? And I've talked to a ton of people, as many of you know, all day, every day. So right now I'm quantifying that as what they tell me. So whether they're calling in, giving me an email, I'm talking to you in person, they are telling me, I heard it on iHeartRadio, I heard it on, or I saw it in Visit Surfside, the Visit newspaper, or I saw it on social media. So they're giving me that information as that comes across. Right now, that's the only means that we have to quantify it, and I'm going to get to more of that later. So the next thing I want to talk about is the quarterly newsletter. It was a very positive response to have that. So the next edition will be delivered in April to our homes. I think everyone has until March the 8th, our departments and committees, to get that information into me so we can start publishing that next edition. Super excited about social media. We've got 31,000 followers, and we're up another 1,000 followers since last month. That's pretty epic. Post engagement is up 183% over last month. And I just wanted to define to you guys, in case you didn't know, what social media engagement is. So it's a really positive thing, and it's a way to gauge how people are interacting with us. So it's a measure of how people are interacting with your social media accounts and content. The term can cover a broad range of actions across all social platforms. For example, engagement might include any kind of likes or reactions or favorites or comments or direct messages or replies. So I hope that helps. So the more I've seen on our social media pages is so positive, and we're getting a lot of engagement with those posts, so that's pretty exciting. Town merchandise, we now have white sweatshirts available. Ooh, pretty soon we won't need sweatshirts, hopefully. But yeah, I'm tired of the cold. We will order, we are going to order some more ball caps and stickers because we sold out of those things. So that's pretty exciting. And ladies, we are going to have a pink line, and men, if you like pink, we're going to have a line of that too for you. So my husband does. So we conferred, just to give you a little context around this, we conferred with Melanie, and it was determined, Melanie, our finance director, and it was determined that the town merchandise sales are essentially a rolling retail venture. No profit, no loss. As sales receipts come in, we can purchase more goods to replenish that stock. So that's basically how all of that works. Our Myrtle Beach Area Chamber partnership, the peer campaign continues. And what that means is we've partnered, it's an ATAX funded, campaign, and consists of radio, digital, and social media. And this is literally partnered with iHeart. So iHeart drives this with, many of you probably heard it on iHeartRadio about the pier. So a lot of that is driven through attracting tourism. So it's going to be updated, of course, once we get an opening date for the pier set. But our meeting this month regarding quantifying tourism, and believe you me, I have been speaking to them a lot about quantification of tourism, and which is people outside of 50-mile radius. The chamber will be assisting us with the ability to ping and identify where people who are attending town events are going to be like pinging their IP addresses, if you will. And And then those results will be available 30 days after that event. So I've set it up to where we are now going to quantify the barbecue festival, not the anything but barbecue festival, but the barbecue festival because it's a very large event. And then we can expect results between 30 and 45 days after that. So the chamber, it's very hard for them to take such a small community and use that. So what they have and what I receive every single week is the Grand Strand Globe, right? So it's a sample of everything with all the communities, and they're able to give you, was the hotel, occupancy up or down, or, that's how they kind of quantify that information. So again, working with them on that. The good news is, because they can't zero in on hours, that's why I started to target the specific festival. Do we get a jump in those specific festivals? So I can't do it every week all season, but I can do it on major events and stuff like that they're gonna get a result from, or we're gonna attempt to, rather. Another cool thing that I'm doing is I have reached out to some of my peeps out there, like the hotels and some of your rental companies that take care of our houses for rent and things like that. And we are in the very beginning stages of being able to get together to see what we can come up with together in our very small community that's going to help quantify tourism. So, I'm not going to ask them what your occupancy is on the daily. That's just not going to happen because, again, that's proprietary information for them. But we're going to come up with a way of being able to do that together so we can get a result, during the season and so on. Whether it be December when we do It's a Wonderful Life at Surfside Beach with all the December events or so on. So that's in the early stages. So hopefully that, when we all get together, we'll be able to work something out that's going to be pretty cool. Okay, so subscribing to Surfside Beach information. So as you know, I'm all over the social media and any inquiries that we have in the office. But I have added onto our website how to subscribe. So you just go to our homepage and then you go to I want to, and then under there specifically tells you what to sign up for, whether it be Code Red, whether it be a survey, whether it be the mayor's emails, whatever you want, that is in that specific section on the website. And those of you that don't know, I forgot to add this, that is also about how merchandise is on there as well. So, let's see. Also with that, Kim at the library is my best friend of late. And she and I have come up with a really cool way of if you've been to the library, there's a big bulletin board and there's just like stuff on it. So we're trying to get something that's gonna stand out and say, boom, this is what's going on for this month. Boom, this is what's going on for that month. So we're working towards that goal. As if you don't know, she's got a lot of information out there. So we are trying to come up with something that people that don't have other means of communication that will be able to get that at the library. But right now they have the newsletter up, they have, the events up, all that fun stuff. So, let's see, that's good. So I was really excited to meet my PIO partners along in Horry County. Building partnerships together, as you guys all know, and everybody out here who, works or has family, knowing when you are building partnerships and you're working as a team, you're absolutely greater as an entity. So, as a PIO, with the Horry County peeps that I met, it was so exciting because the information that we can share back and forth along the Grand Strand is basically proactive communication. We have two-way communications and ethically engaging citizens at a local level. We're partnered together on that. So, we might live here in Surfside Beach, but something in Horry County may be going on. Like I think I posted about the road closures because they're doing the controlled burns. So we're sharing that information out there so we get that information out to everybody that needs it. I mean, think about it. We're 4,100 approximate people here, but there's 31,000 followers on our page. So if someone's rolling down to Surfside Beach in their car and we have road closures, they can see it right there on the page. So, and then preventing crisis. You know, if we get ahead of it, we can and have a good plan right in place when something does happen. Communication's out to everyone. So it's a really good communication. And I'm also going to a PIO meeting for the entire Grand Strand, so not just Horry County. So I'll get to meet everyone else. So a conference there is upcoming. I think it's in April. I don't have the date written down, but it's sometime in April. Okay, so I hope that was a lot. So I do want to mention events because we've got a lot coming up. So if you can bear with me just a minute. First of all, I did bring a stack of 2024 event flyers. So they're located in the bag. They're also in the back of the newsletter, but things have been updated since then. So I figured if everybody wanted a copy to take one, you can also find that on the website, on the events page, and you just click on the link that says 2024 events for the year. So a couple things we have going on. Anything But Barbecue, that is coming up on March the 8th. That is where all of our competitors that will be competing for March the 9th, the actual barbecue festival, they're going to be cooking up some vittles, if you will, to have our community dinner. So that's from 4 to 7 p.m. So we're excited about that. Please join us. The barbecue festival itself is March the 9th, 10 to 4. And again, that's Surfside Drive and Yopon parking lot. The 60th birthday celebration for the town is going to be on March the 14th. I will ask that you all attend, please. It's going to be a really exciting time. And wow, 60 years old, you know, doesn't sound old, but it sounds exciting. So I really am excited about that. That is from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the Pier parking lot. We have the meet and greet with our Fire Chief David Nelson on March the 11th. That is 11:30 to 1 p.m. at the fire department. So please join us for that. Also, the Children's Fair and Easter egg hunt will be on March the 23rd, 1 to 4 at the Huckabee Sports Complex. And the Easter sunrise service on the beach is Sunday, March 31st at 6 a.m. Keep in mind, in April, both the Tuesday Farmers Market and the Thursday Arts and Crafts fairs begin that very first weekend in April. And I'm telling you guys that now because when I come back up for another report, we will be 2 weeks in. So just so you know, put that on your calendars. And we are excited to say we're having another community yard sale because everybody was so excited. Community yard sale is going to take place on April the 13th. And then Keep Surfside Beach Beautiful will kick off their beach days on Monday evening in honor of Earth Day. So I believe it's at 5 p.m. But check that just to make sure that they don't change that. And then the Arbor Day tree planting celebration is going to take place on Friday, April 26th at 10 a.m. in Harrison Park. There's going to be, I think Benjamin's Bakery is going to donate some coffee and some treats for us there. So that's going to be really exciting. And that's all I have for you.
Already? That's all? Are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Michelle?
have they said where the sunrise services on the beach, what location? No?
Well, it's usually like right there at River City Cafe. You know, like when you go out on that beach, you're on the actual beach, like in front of that. We're hoping at the pier. So it has always been at the pier before the pier was destroyed. So we're hoping to get it back there. So we just have to wait and see if we can. Thank you.
Anything else?
One other question.
Mr. Stamey?
The farmer's market. You said the farmer's market is all set to come back on the Tuesday of every month. I mean, every week now.
Yes, sir.
All right. Just making sure.
Yes, sir. Tuesday, yes.
We have a problem with that every year.
Okay, no, we're all set. We're good to go.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, we're now moving to planning, building, and zoning, and that's gonna be Administrator Vincent.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and council, it's all about the numbers. I give you a brief report regarding the planning, building, and zoning department. We've hired certified professionals now running our permit tech operations. We've got a building official with the certifications coming in 2 days, and we've got a code enforcement official coming in 2 weeks. So the numbers you'll see will increase. We've kept up a pretty good pace, as you see the number of permits per year, per month, and also the fees for January of 2024. The number of inspections has increased from December to 141, and then you see the number of tree inspections from January of 26 to 17. And the reason that number is low is we did not have a building inspector to actually inspect those tree applications, but now we will.
Any questions for Administrator Vincent? I think you basically answered mine. Why the numbers were low. Right. Because of the lack of staffing. Okay. Anything else? All right, we're gonna move on to the finance report from Director Gruber.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to go through some highlights and then I wanted to go over the financials Excel spreadsheet that I sent out to you with all the information. I want to make sure you understand how to read it. So first we'll start with the general fund. Through December, we were 3.2 million in revenue and 4.3 million in expenditures. The property tax was at 1.78 million, which was 52% of the budgeted amount. That do have January update. It is now at 98% of the budgeted amount. So January is when it all comes in. Business license renewals were mailed out the due date of April. And through December, there were 81 new business license accounts opened. 14 were new businesses, 12 new rentals, 17 new contractors, and 38 out-of-town businesses. Under the special revenue funds, which is your accommodations and hospitality and local aid tax, we had in hospitality, we collected 1.5 million, and in local aid tax, it was 352,000 through December. The aid tax from the state, the first quarter was 605. It kind of runs behind. We've got the second quarter check in, it was 66.8 thousand. And those are for the rentals from September to December. On our capital projects fund, Horry County road fees through December totaled 53,000. And the road fees continue to offset the cost of road paving projects currently in progress. And I just wanted to remind that this fund holds the assigned fund balance for your beach renourishment, which is a little over 1 million. Street improvements at 165,000, and the American Rescue Funds are in that. Under Stormwater Utility Fund, it says engineering work continued for the second phase of the drainage project, and stormwater collections total 215,000 through December. I included a summary of the estimated pier reconstruction costs. It didn't change much from the last time, but Zane and I did get together and make sure we reallocated or we showed properly what our retainage is. On the sanitation fund, revenues totaled 820,000 and expenditures were at 682. So the sanitation fund continues to cover all their expenses with the revenue collected. Under parking, the parking season begins in March and the registration begins tomorrow. And our expenses through December were 148,000. And then on the investment pool, I started adding this because we just wanted to see where we are, and our current interest rate for December was 5.68%. And as Administrator Vincent already said, we have begun our budget process. So this is a new team effort. We go to the report that I sent out. I just want to make sure. I've already made a change where I have the prior year MTD that was meant to be YTD. So all of this is year to date through December. So I made sure I had a comparison for you so you can see as of December, our ending fund balance was 5.7 in general fund compared to the prior year where it was 5.3. So I was hoping this format would help you see a little more where we are as we go through every single month.
Yes, thank you.
That's all I have. Do you have any other questions?
Okay, do we have any questions for Director Gruber?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Walls?
I had just one under capital project. Was that, as I understand it, the American Rescue Fund was originally $2 million. So we've earned $317,000 on that?
I'll have to look at that, get back with you tomorrow, but interest has been adding to it.
Yeah.
So yes, but I'll have to go back and see what the original amount was.
I'm just real impressed with that, but.
Yes,
Yeah, but I didn't know exactly what the original amount was either, but.
I will find out
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.
I'm sure I've looked at it, I just can't.
You see a few numbers a day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one or two. When you say year-to-date, is it calendar year-to-date, fiscal year-to-date?
Fiscal year to date.
So it's the last 6 months when you say
Correct.
December. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. And you know, I guess this does kind of show it, because I'd asked about the whole first page, but the backup is really giving all those, the previous year or period amounts to, so, okay. In the capital projects funds, the $1+ million for beach renourishment, do we still need to keep that for that? Director Adair's mentioned that Army Corps of Engineers is supposed to be doing beach renourishment, but is it full or?
Yes, and
It's still our share.
your ordinance states that we should be putting 75,000 towards it a year. I was trying to find if there was a cap on that. I'm not seeing it. Emily and I were going over some things today to see if she could help me figure out what the rules are. That might be something we want to talk about.
But at this point, we don't need to use this, right?
As
Or
far as I know, is that correct?
This year's renourishment will be 100% federal.
100%, okay.
Right. And in this year, I noticed there is nothing budgeted to set aside, and I believe that is the reason why.
Okay. But you're looking into that to make sure we're following
Yes.
our own ordinances.
Yes.
We don't want to get our.
Because I feel like for next year, we would need to budget that again, but I need to talk to John about it.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you, Director Gruber. With that, we're moving into discussion items. And the only item we have there is an ordinance review committee, and I put myself on there. I didn't really prepare any documentation for this, and it's just going to be a very brief, open discussion. We do have some ordinances, as we just said, you know, that we're supposed to be adding to the beach renourishment fund, but we don't even know if we've got a cap. We've got to look into that. There may be years when it doesn't make sense. I think we've just got some holes in some of our ordinances. Some of the positions created were done through the budget, but we didn't go back and define them in ordinances. That's something that we still have to do, or we have to clean up the ordinance to say that's not necessary. I don't know that we need a citizen committee or a mini council committee, or if we just work with the administration to do that. I've heard that the administration marked up some chapters in the past, and then council didn't do anything with it. So I think we've got to decide what we want to do as a group. So I'm just going to invite comments from any other council members here.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Stamey?
why can't, I mean, we're talking about this, and why can't we just go ahead and assign our planning and zoning, or planning department into looking into these ordinances? That's part of what they should be doing. Why should we even think about starting another committee when we have a committee there that should fall under their state, I mean, under their law to look into. And I was just wondering, could we not assign them so many ordinances to look at, give them a date to come back with what they find, and then some more dates to give you? I've been on council for 2.5 years now, and we've actually never given them nothing assigned to do. So I'm assuming that we could sign this to planning.
Okay, any other comments on that, related to that? I think that is appropriate with planning, building, zoning ordinances, which is a lot of it.
Yeah.
It is a lot, but we do have other sections too. But yeah, I don't want to automatically create new committees if we have a better body to address some of these. And again, I was talking with Administrator Vincent just the other day, and we had the administration look at some of the sections that it owns, but you know, they did some work, and I guess council is not real enthusiastic about some of that. So we've got to keep an open mind from our perspective as well, especially if we ask them to do that work again.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Kinkin.
As I wrote to you the other day, there were a lot of ordinances that were looked at over the last 4 years. And some of them were rewritten. I know Kenny worked on one forever. It's just a lot of work goes into this, so let's concentrate on the ones that haven't been rewritten instead of trying to redo it again in this shorter period of time. It's not easy work.
Yeah, I would definitely say that if it's been rewritten and accepted, then we're good. I'm not looking at something that was done 2 years ago. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that. So I think we're going to have to take, you know, amongst us, a look at where we think the holes are. Are there any other comments? Okay, that's all I really want to do with that now. I think, again, the first order is for us to look at the, you know, from our side where we think the holes are, and then we can decide who we should assign to. So with that, we'll move on to the business item, and the first is the second reading of ordinance 24-0964, motor vehicles and traffic.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve second reading of ordinance number 24-0964. We had the first reading 213. This is chapter 9, motor vehicle and traffic.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm going to start. We got a comment today, the whole council did, an email about the $4 fee for parking at the pier. And I just want to make a few comments about that. Having been on the pier committee, we discussed that well over a year ago. And the one I keep going back to is Folly Beach. We went down there and it's $20 to park at their pier, and that's just flat fee. People advertise for parking in their front yards, $20 flat fee. We didn't want to go anywhere near there. We presented that idea to council. I believe the parking committee kicked this around too, because the parking committee was assigned ultimately to come up with a plan for even for pier parking. So I don't want to speak for the parking committee, but I think it kind of reached a similar conclusion, and I'll invite other members to speak here soon. But the pier, we've got to pay for the pier. We've got a bond issue, and the leases are not going to cover the bond payments. We can make additional revenue on parking, charging admission, which we have chosen not to do for the first year. Well, that first year passed. So actually we need to address that for 2024. But anyway, there's really not a whole lot of other ways to make money on the pier. We don't know what it's gonna cost to maintain it. So the idea of charging parking $4 and not allowing resident stickers is that residents do have other options. We do have Yopon parking lot, which would be free to residents and non-residents with stickers. We would have the gravel lot a little further up Surfside, and then there's even some golf cart parking at First North and First South. So there were options available for people with stickers, and we really want to get the revenue from the visitors. You know, it's our tax dollars, maybe not property tax dollars, but, you know, funds that we're responsible for paying for the pier. So this just gets more visitors to pay a share. The last thing I'll say about that is that, you know, with roughly 50 spaces, 10 hours a day, you've got 500 parking hours available at $4. That's $2,000 a day. If we use up a quarter or a half of that with resident parking, that's going to really cut into the ability to fund the pier. So I just wanted to bring that out before we vote on this, and I'll invite any other comment. Mr.
Mayor,
Coleman.
Being with the parking committee for a lot of years, our idea, although all the parking revenue goes to the pier fund, we took that into consideration, but also we wanted the businesses on the pier to have a big turnover of traffic. Not that someone's gonna park there for the whole day to go to the beach, and then people who wanted to go to the pier wouldn't have a parking space. You mentioned a couple of places other people could park. The off-on parking is probably about 50 feet away from the pier parking lot. There's even more parking that is closer to the pier than the off-on, which is on Seaside Drive. And that is a metered park, not metered, but you need a parking permit, so a resident can park there. The whole idea is to get people to use the businesses. And that's why, in fact, it's recommended a little pricier than a normal parking space, just so we can have turnover. And honestly, if you can't walk a block to help us out, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, honestly.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Stamey.
I also read the email that this lady sent to us today and read it with heart because she's really mad about paying $4, making residents not be able to use their stickers. But really and truly, if you really sit down and consider it, after 6 o'clock in the afternoon, there's no parking anyway. And in the summer months, if you want to go to the beach, that's a really nice time to go to the beach. It's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They can go down there and park wherever they want to after 6. And I'm assuming it's 8 o'clock in the morning. They could park before 8 o'clock. So there are some benefits to the parking lot that you can go use. But as the mayor said, it's a fun, it's a way to help pay some on that pier instead of us charging you another $1 to get on the pier. I'd much rather see my people coming in from out of town and all paying that $1 or $2 more to park out here in the parking lot than I had to see it charge anybody to walk on that pier. I hope that we can always keep that pier open for free to go on. That's what my goal is. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add that the parking committee was advised by our divot parking that we should charge more than what we offered to do. And the committee is pretty much unanimous. They didn't want to go that next step. They want to see what this does this year, but it is to generate money because we do have a $330,000 bond that we pay for the next 12 years. The pier itself is not going to generate that kind of money, so you have to come from somewhere. Now, sure, we can continue to pull money from ATAX and hospitality, but the pier itself needs to fund itself. It needs, the next few years, it won't do it. We understand that. But down the road, it'll be self-sufficient. It's just not today. And I would rather charge more to park than to increase taxes. Or to pay to go on the pier. I agree with Mr. Staney. I don't want to ever have to charge to go on the pier. I just think it's more trouble than it's worth, in my opinion. But thank you.
Any other discussion on pier parking? All right, with that, Ms. Medina, you take the vote? Let me restate the motion. We have a motion and a second to adopt the second reading of ordinance 24-0964, motor vehicles and traffic.
Ms. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Kinkin?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kreckloff?
Yes.
Mr. Stamey?
Yes.
Mr. Walls?
Here.
Mayor Kraus?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll now move on to committee appointments. We have the pier committee reinstated last meeting. There are 2 members carrying over who have been reinstated, and we have 3 applications for 3 spots. So with that, I'll read the names and we'll look for a motion. So we have Alex Samsel, who was previously on the committee, and 2 new applicants, Rick Lawhorn and Robert Gordon. Do we have a motion to, and I think we can take this all in one since we have 3 spots. So do we have a motion to accept these 3 applicants?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept all 3 applicants for the pier committee.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I happen to know all 3 of these individuals, and I think they're all quality people, and I think they contribute well. So with that, if there's no other comments, you can take the vote.
Ms.
Ms.
Fallon?
Medina, sorry.
Ms. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Kinkin?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Kreckloff?
Yes.
Mr. Stamey?
Yes.
Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Mayor Kraus?
Yes. Okay, our last order of business, removal of pier plaque, and that will be presented by Councilmember Fallon.
Good evening. I know this is not a likable topic among many, but I can tell you from the time that I campaigned to the time I got elected, that was one of the top things I heard. Get rid of the plaque, dedicate it to certain people. It should be dedicated to the residents. So I took it upon myself to have an open mind. I did a petition just to see what kind of numbers I would get. I had people calling me up and asking me to help. Now, we had a short period of time. I received about 150 signatures altogether to myself and 2 other helpers. I only had 1 person that I actually asked myself that said, no, I don't feel comfortable. So, the odds were there for people willing to hear this. The second thing I want to say is even at the workshop we had previously, just last week or the week before, we had a resident that came up here, very well written, and said, once again, the pier needs to be dedicated to the Surfside town residents, not individual names. So all this information kept adding up. So, and some even said, why not include Surfside businesses and visitors? That's something for next time. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at listening to the residents, the majority of the residents. Now, people can look at me and give me dirty looks while I'm up here, be it. I'm just telling you, I'm trying to be the voice of the residents that have come to me through text, email, phone calls. So that 150 signed names could be if I would go back to all three of those things, I could easily add up another 100, 150. So I'm telling you, I went to 500 houses during the campaign. Over half those houses were telling me the same thing. I have no reason to lie about this. So I'm telling you, I'm speaking for the residents. I even reviewed the agenda meetings, agenda and the minutes from 2023. I couldn't even find where the dedicated plaque was put as an agenda item on any of the meetings. And if you can correct me, I'll be the first one to say I missed it. But I went through them 2 days, kept going over and over. I didn't find. I had one person tell me that it was mentioned in a meeting that it would have ABC on it. There was no mention of how much it was going to cost. And of course, it was under that $10,000 mark, so it didn't have to have a vote. But it's not like the residents knew ahead of time. All of a sudden, they had a dedication for a pier that we couldn't even walk on. And we're still not walking on it. But this dedication happened last September. So I am following the voice of the people, and I am requesting that we remove this plaque and replace it with a proper one dedicated to Surfside Beach residents. And that's all I gotta say about it.
In that case then, we need a motion. Do you want to make the motion yourself?
I'll make a motion that we vote to remove the plaque.
I'll second.
Are you done?
Mhm.
Just to remove the plaque?
Because we gotta go to the second. So to remove the plaque, to make sure it ensures no individual names, says Surfside Town residents. That's who should it be dedicated to.
I just wanted to clarify the motion, that is just to remove the existing plaque. So we have the motion.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. I cut that off just to clarify, so I appreciate you sticking that with that.
Appreciate your clarification.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion on this? And I guess I'd like to start with somebody who wants to speak in favor of keeping it, if anybody wants to speak up on that.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Singh.
listen, I've read all this stuff on on Facebook about the dedication of that plaque. I was on council when that plaque was made for that pier. It was brought to our attention. Mr. Adair, I went to him today and asked him about it. On 7/25 of 23, he has brought it to our pier, to the committee, to the council here, to ask about it. And at that time, we said he had told us about the plaque and a granite plaque, is what it was. And some name tags that goes on the pier, some other things, the blocks, the bricks that goes out front, selling them. I read on Facebook and some of these warriors who wants to down the council talks about how they describe, how shameful that I'd be to have my name on that plaque. I'm going to tell you right now, y'all, every one of you sitting here and everybody listening, I worked my butt off on a lot of this stuff on the pier. I am very proud to have my name on it, whether you take it down or whether you don't. But I want everybody in here to know that I put an effort in to getting that pier to where you've got it now. Me and Mr. Kinkin down here was probably two of the people on that plaque that everybody's wanting to take down that really put in an effort to make sure that we had the best pier that we could get. And if most of you don't know that we've been on the pier and had people on that pier who were building it, actually, I ain't gonna say throw their phone, but the phone comes sliding across the floor because they were so mad because we found things wrong with that pier. And to hear my people that I live here in this town sit and talk about that I should be ashamed that my name's on it. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm proud to live in Surfside, and I'm proud to represent every one of you. I am glad my name's on it, whether you take it down or not. That plaque costed the town money to put it up there. And as I talked to John today, he can't just go up there and saw it off and take it down. It's going to have to be cut up and thrown away. As everybody wants to complain about money, here we're going to take down a plaque that costed you money. I know that some people don't like the way it was done, but at the time it was done, it was put up there for the simple reason we thought we was getting the pier. And if the date was put on it as September because we were supposed to have the pier. Instead of waiting and putting it up, which we probably should have, we went ahead and put it up because September was ending and it had to be put up there. So, thanks.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Wallace.
As you and Mr. Vincent know, I had intended to make this motion, but my motion wasn't necessarily targeting directly on a piece of metal. My motion was to rededicate.
Excuse me, somebody's taking
Serious
serious
today.
today.
In my place. I turned her down instead of turning her off. I'm sorry.
Must be time to go.
But anyway.
Little comic relief.
Yeah.
Please carry on.
But anyway, my motion was to have intended, but it so closely follows this that I appreciate Ms. Fallon bringing it forward, and I seconded her motion. The main reason that I wanted to rededicate the pier was because I felt that it was inappropriately, with everybody that's been involved. There's now going to have been 3 mayors. There's been 6 various councils. There's been 4 town administrators. There's been, to just pick and go through and pick 9 of those people to dedicate that pier to on a 100-year pier that my grandson will be taking his children to. The only word I can think of is just absolutely inappropriate. So the names was my first reason. My second reason was that the bottom line is it should have always and forever been dedicated to the people that own it, and that's the people of this town. It should have been dedicated to the people of Surfside Beach. And if you wanted to put more of a blurb on there, I think it would have been cool to list the hurricanes that have taken it out. And when they rebuilt it, let's make it a historical plaque or whatever. But it should have never been, unless you're gonna have 42 or 45 names up on that thing for everybody that was involved in making it happen. I don't think it was appropriate there either. And I have to say, I have to be pointed in my third point. And the most embarrassing thing to me about that is that I am aware that 3 of the people that are on that pier and are going to be forever ingrained in a plaque on a 100-year pier were 3 people that sued another piece of this council that didn't agree with the way they wanted to do things, and in that suit named the town of Surfside Beach as part of the defendant. And I do not want those people immortalized on my pier.
Amen, brother.
So that's, I'm gonna get off that box, but that's 3 of the good reasons why since I saw it hanging there the first time back in September during the campaign, I wanted it down. So, and I have spoken to a lot of residents in this town that agreed with me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any more comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. King.
I have to agree with Mr. Staney. I'm gonna vote to take this thing down, but we spent a lot of time pointing out things that were wrong. The first time I'm standing at Scotty's and seeing the plywood on the first building they put up, start bowing and get black marks on it. It's mildew because they didn't wrap the building. I left there and went up and beat on administrator's desk and said he had to get something done. If they're gonna put buildings up and put plywood on it, and it was supposed to have been marine plywood, but it was not, they have to do something. When I've talked before about going up there on the, in October of 22, the purpose of going up there was to show the administrator that it was rusting inside the building. It wasn't bad then. Then Mr. Stamey and I went up at the end of November, 1st of December, and he's got pictures. The rust had gotten worse. Now, I will say, Consensus did the right thing. They removed the bad plywood, wrapped the building, they treated the rust, and then resprayed it. But we're up there telling them what's going wrong, and that's not our job. I don't mind doing it because it's for the town. I mean, I benefit from it. I want a good pier. The last time we had a come to Jesus meeting, I had everybody involved and showing them that the plywood inside the building had moisture this far up because it did not have doors and windows. It was open to elements and the moisture was being absorbed by the plywood. You may not have known, but A and I came in, boxed up the buildings and dried them out before they put doors and windows in. So yeah, we worked on this pier trying to make it the best pier possible. And I will say is that Consensus followed up when we rubbed their nose in it. They followed it up and made corrections. So while my name's on it, I'm very proud of this pier. I'm gonna vote to take it off. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Coleman.
first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Stamey and Mr. Kinkin for the oversight on the pier. I know you took a special interest in it and you got things stopped or changed before they got worse. I understand that. And I'm sure you still would have done it if you didn't get the name on it.
Absolutely.
Because you did it for the right reason.
Yeah. Okay.
But it just has so much bad feelings. I mean, and I don't think we should reward some of the people on that plaque for all the trouble they caused. And unfortunately, it's gonna negate all the positive words and recognition by some of the others who did such a great job. So for that reason, I'm gonna vote for taking it down.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Krecklau.
I would just like to add that my name's on it. I don't care if it's on it. I don't care if it disappears really, but I'm gonna vote to keep it. I think it's a waste of money to just tear it down, throw it away. Add another one that says the residents also. I know it's not the popular view, but it's just the way I feel about it.
Okay, I'm the only one who hasn't said anything. I think enough's been said. So if there are no other comments.
Ms. Fallon?
Go ahead.
Ms. Fallon?
Doing the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Most definite for the resident, yes.
Mr. Kinkin?
That is to take it down, right?
Yeah.
I should have restated. Would you mind if I do that?
Okay.
Yeah, we are, the motion is to remove the existing pier flag. That's really all it is. So, go ahead.
Ms. Fallon?
Once again, most definitely, what I've heard from the resident, a definite, Y-E-S, yes.
Mr. Kinkin?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Krecklau?
No.
Mr. Stamey?
No.
Mr. Walls?
Yes.
Mayor Kraus?
I'll vote yes. Motion carries 5-2. With that, we have concluded our business at 8:47-ish. Well, our part. And
can't go over this early.
I mean, we've gotten through the agenda, now we're gonna open it up to public comment. This is kind of a record for us. Public comments on any item of town business, anything you heard tonight.
How you doing? Rod Schilling, 220 North Yale Pond Drive, also have a business up on the highway. Exciting stuff. Everything that's gone on tonight has been really exciting. Probably one of the best things I've heard is how exciting it is to hear the numbers of growth of the people that want to come to our beach and our town because of our people, and because of the hard work that staff has done. But it's also scary. Where do we put all those people? How do they park? Where are they how do they get to our businesses? Because I think it's exciting that there's gonna be more people in town because I get to make more money. And hopefully the town gets to make more money because of it. But we still gotta figure out a way to get them from place to place and a way to park. I serve on both the business committee and the parking committee. And the business committee has even taken a position to talk about parking on a pretty regular basis. How do we do it? Where are we gonna park them? I know there's been talk about, I missed the last council meeting, but I know you guys got to discuss where town hall was gonna go. What are we gonna do with this piece of property? Of course, we need a new police department. We need to rebuild where a court's gonna go on. Do we need a civic center? Of course, that kind of stuff needs to be done. But there's a lot of property here, and we do have a building where town hall resides right now across the street. But what if just for a second, we tasked ourselves with a way to use this property and move people better than the way it's done? We've got 4 buses now coming from a hotel over across the street that flood our beaches, but they don't really use any of our businesses. We've brought up more than once that those 4 buses could have a route. And we're gonna beat that dead horse until somebody gives me a reason why we can't do it, or they're gonna say yes. But we can route those buses to stop at businesses and be a profit center for Surfside, not just a dumping ground to say, hey, I got 100 people today that I wanna dump off at the beach and pick them up at the end of the day and bring them back. How can we get them to the businesses? And the reason why I brought up this piece of property is, one, we can do that. I believe we can do that. But this piece of property, why couldn't this be a parking ride? Why couldn't we have a community shuttle, free shuttle, that you're paying a guy minimum wage plus tips to run around this town back and forth to be able to bring people to a safe spot to park, this lighted like this is, and then, believe me, there's a lot of land here, a lot of parking spots that we could utilize to do that, and get them down to the beach or down to businesses, and just have a little route that goes on a regular basis. I had the opportunity to rebuild a couple of buses up at Barefoot Landing. Their piece of property that they encompass there is probably dang near the size of the area that I'm talking about encompassing here with that same type of shuttle. Theirs are electric, ours might not be able to be electric, but that being said, they still move people around on a regular basis. They do it efficiently. It's free. The parking area that we have, maybe it doesn't have to be free. I'd like to see it free as a park and ride type of deal, to have spots for people that come into our town that say, I want to spend money with the businesses and the area of Surfside to be able to have a place to park and a place to get around. I don't think a tipsy trolley is the way to go, a bus that just brings you from bar to bar. But if you did it right, and you did it with a courtesy shuttle that was going around on a regular basis, 7 days a week, figured out a way to, these retired guys that want to work a couple of days a week, and for tips for something to do, they'll do it. I have no trouble finding drivers. It's doing the other work that's always been a challenge. But I think we would have some there. All I can ask you with is talk about it amongst yourselves. We're going to continue to talk about it in the business committee and the parking committee. And we're going to beat that dead horse until the city administrator comes to senses and says, I'm going to give you an answer. But exciting stuff tonight. Thanks so much, all you guys, for what you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes, I'm Dennis Eversmeyer from 710 Fourth Ave South. I'm new to the town, first meeting, so I got a lot of information. Back on the pier, I hear a lot of rumors, and I hope you possibly could answer just one question. When it comes to the restaurant and Drippy's, is that a leased property and then we furnish the equipment, et cetera, et cetera? Or is it something they outfit their own equipment and it's a rental? I'm not sure what the restaurant and Drippy's do. Do you know?
Well, we'll address that in comments at the end.
Okay,
You-
because
this is
the reason
your
I'm
public
asking,
comment.
because I just hear a rumor that the restaurant end of it got an extraordinarily low amount per square foot to take the property and lease or rent for 35 years. They told me 19 a square foot for 35 years. And I know most restaurants are 200, 250 a square foot, so that's a big revenue draw for what you could get from that pier. Because you only have the two little buildings, I think, Drippy's and the restaurant. Is that it? Are there other businesses?
We'll address.
Okay, yeah, I just hear it, and so I thought I'd ask for clarification. But thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, my name is David Parton, and I live at 514 Pine Drive, and I'll be quick. I know it's late. Just wanted to say, guys, before we pop the champagne on this pier being finished, don't get drunk on success, because these projects we have for the police department and all this, go in with caution. We just heard you guys arguing about a plaque. How are we going to get a building done? It's something, though, go in with caution, understand where we are as a town as far as a fiscal responsibility. And I think once we're fiscally responsible and earn the right to grow, that's a good one to know, earn the right to grow. This town has struggled with a pier for 7 years. We have not earned the right to grow. So once we earn that right and get fiscal responsible, then we should look into all these other projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. With that, I'm going to move on to town council discussion and comments. And I think I'm just going to start with Mr. Krecklau on my right.
Oh, thanks for all the listening and everybody that came out. See you next time.
Short and sweet. Mr. Krecklau does not want to take on the questions. That's fine. I'm going to go to Mr. Walls on the left.
Hey, great meeting, great news. We've been, golly gee, in this town, we've been waiting to hear this news for a long time. And no, we're not gonna pop the champagne yet, because we know we have a lot left to do, but still. Just thank everybody for coming out. It was great to see such a great crowd. Thanks for whoever's, always forget, that might be checking us out and coming in by internet. I appreciate the time and effort and the involvement and the engagement that we're getting from the community. We're really, really trying to do a great job for y'all. And the only way we can know that we're doing that is to hear from you. So thanks for all that you're doing. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Mr. Kinkin, please.
It is good to see this many people here. I don't know how many are tuning in. I do appreciate people approaching us. We got a unhappy email today from someone who was complaining about citizens paying for the pier, and I tried to point out to him there were 3 methods to pay for it. I forgot the 4th, and that was the charge to go on the pier, because I've just never been in favor of that. So paying the parking lot is gonna hopefully keep us from ever having to raise taxes to cover the cost. I think we've got the cost covered for the next 12 years. But if we don't have income in the parking lot, then we have to look at it. So I'll just leave it at that. the leases on the pier, those buildings, they lease the shell, they're responsible for filling the shell. We don't pay for that, we don't pay for their equipment, that is up to them. Now, there is in the lease agreement on the restaurant, there is a line item that we do have to cover. We may have already covered it, I don't know, but there was a dollar amount that we had to do. I'm not gonna get into specifics, but it'll generate, maybe not from the lease, but from the ATAX and hospitality, we'll get money back from that restaurant, just like we always have. With that, I want to thank our staff. We had the heads here tonight giving us great reports. They're first responders, do a great job for this town. Our finance department does a great job. We all know what a good job Public Works does. Tabitha's doing a great job. It's a well-oiled machine. I even think Jerry's doing a good job, but I don't want to tell him that. It'll go to his head. But I'm very pleased. And I have talked to people at Town Hall that says it's best it's been in a few years. So we're doing something right. And I hope there are a lot of people listening in. It's been a good night. We're going to get out of here before midnight. I'm excited about that, unless somebody gets long-winded like me. And with that, I just want to say God bless everybody and see you in 2 weeks for the next meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
Just want to thank everybody for coming out. I thought we'd get a better reaction at the pier. It's finally just nearing completion. I probably, like most of you, don't believe it, so. But it's happening, folks. It really is. And I hope we can get you on it as soon as possible. I don't know what it's gonna take. I don't know if we have to go through every single punchline list. Or is it safe for us to go on there and use the pier while they're furnishing these stores? I know Drippy's is already totally outfitted. I think they had a DHEC test, that they're good to go. The fishing tackle spot, I don't know how much they have to do, but I know the Surfside Diner has got a ways to go. But I would hate for us not to be able to use the pier because Surfside Diner is too slow to the task of getting it up and running. So I want to see if we can possibly get on it as soon as possible. And I think that will bring a lot of satisfaction to the people in this town to finally realize we're getting a pier. Because we've said it so many times, it's done, it's going to be done, next week it's going to be done. I've been on the council for 4 months now. And they told me the first time I came to a meeting, it's going to be done by December 25th. Well, it's 3 months later. Or 2 months later. But we're there. Also, another thing I'd like to bring up, this forensic audit. We've had prior councils screaming about a forensic audit. We need a forensic audit. We had one. There's nothing wrong. There was a couple of maybe ways they could have done it better. Everything was there. Everything was fine. That's a good sign, folks. And then we also had an annual audit, and there was no problems. So for all this time, people saying there's something going on, well, folks, there wasn't. And I'm glad to hear that. But again, I really appreciate people coming out. With the COVID, a lot of people stopped coming to the meetings. But we used to have back rooms. It was really good. And now we're back to that again. And that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shawn.
Well, once again, I'm extremely happy to see everyone here participating. And I know the situation, the fact that I brought it up because people told me to bring it up, the residents. And I said when I ran, I was going to listen to the residents. The one thing I can say about this council here, this is a good group of people. We talk. Last time I could remember, there was always a 4-3. You could almost guarantee who was going to vote, the 4 side and the 3 side. I like it that we mix it up. And that goes to show that we are actually looking at the topics, we're actually reading the background information, and I'm proud to be part of this group. And our job is to listen to the residents. The town belongs to all of us, not just the council, not just the departments. And I appreciate people supporting me, and the ones that don't, that's yours. It's on you. And, cause, you know, I was not treated too well this evening when I walked in here. And, you know what? My mom always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, you shouldn't say anything at all. So I kept my lips shut. It was really hard for this Irish woman to do that, but I did it. So I thank you for coming out. I like that I got a lot of thumbs up when I was talking about. Thank you for your support, and God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Stamey?
Thanks for everybody coming out and people listening in. They are 5 buildings, 4 buildings on the pier. They are another restaurant, we hope, going into building D out there. As soon as we can get the lease finalized on that, they will be upfitting everything themselves. We, as a town, don't pay for none of that, so that's up to them. What I understand now, that they have so many, once we give them the okay to start working on the building, they'll have so many days to fit their building before they start paying the leases, which I hope Surf Diner has one too, but I don't know for sure about it. But, like I told you earlier, I'm proud to represent this town. And I know that I heard somebody make a comment in the back a while ago that I don't appreciate. And if you have a problem with something I said, address me after the meeting and I'll talk to you. And I'm also going to talk about what Harry said. I've listened ever since I've been on council, how this town, our finance department, where's the money at? There are $800,000 missing here. Well, I am so glad that we had this forensic audit now. I'm to know that it's like he said, that things wasn't done perfect, but they found every dollar that was supposed to be in this town. There ain't nobody pocketing no money. There ain't none of this council up here making a fortune. I promise you. And if you think so, in a year and a half, 18 months, there'll be some election going on. If you think we're making all that, or we get suitcases full of money from people that it's outside of this town, run for council, and you'll find out that it ain't quite like everybody thinks. But saying that, I am glad to see the crowds coming back, and I'm glad to hear the comments. But back to the plaque, when you've got 4,000 residents in this area, 4,100, something to that effect, and you bring a document in here that's been signed by 150 people, that don't represent the town. That represents a small portion of this town. So if we'd have had to come in here with 2,000 signatures, that's representative of the town. That's half of the population. But besides that, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Okay, I'll conclude. I did hear an inappropriate remark, and fortunately, it was one and it was over, but we can't have that, and I will have to call for order if that does happen in the future. So I just want to point that out. Our new resident, Mr. Evansmeyer, I believe it was. I want to applaud you for coming up so early and getting engaged this quickly. And for the resident who wrote to all of council today, we do listen, we really do. So I applaud anybody who comes to speak up. And I do appreciate that for what I've seen, email, the people that have come and spoken to me, the people that have been here, everything has been respectful, even the social media stuff. It's not always agreeing with what we're doing, or me personally, but I really like the tone I've heard. Some people get a little frustrated and all that, but that's no big deal. And just to summarize, adding to Mr. Kinkin and Mr. Stamey, so the end result is that we will have 2 restaurants, 1 ice cream shop, and a bait and tackle shop when we're done. That's the plan. 1 restaurant did sign a lease very early, and there was extenuating circumstances with that. It is less than market rate. I think we all know that. We're just going to have to deal with that. So far as this council goes, it's a pretty passionate group, and actually I'm pleased with that. We kind of have the same kind of discussions that I hear. It can get a little heated, but not bad. It's respectful, and that just is telling me that people care and believe their viewpoints and have a reason for them. It's not just just talking just to hear yourself talk. So I enjoy working with this council so far. One last point I'll make, the other revenue stream that I still think we can investigate on the pier is town merchandise. And I know Ms. Mull said that, what was that term, rolling revenue, something like that. But I know at Folly Beach and Mount Pleasant, they sold stuff and made a lot of money on the pier. I know that right now we've got the little small space that's allocated for public works. I still would like to look at that and see if we can use that as well. We'd have to make sure we've got public works covered. But that's just an opportunity that I think we can't avoid to look at. And with that, that's all I've got. So I will just say again, thanks to everybody who attends, everybody who speaks up, those that listen online, all those that get in touch with us. I appreciate that people have actually been stopping by and making appointments or just coming during open office hours. I will continue to do that, but not Monday. I'm going to be out of town Monday, so I'll have to put that in the Friday update. And I appreciate people reading those and responding. And again, even if you don't like what I'm saying, let me know. That'll be fine. All right. So,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Wow, look at us.
It's only 10 after 9.